Hey everybody, welcome back to Rick's Tech Talk. Today I'm going to build a centerpiece, I guess you would call it, behind my computer desk. So that way if I'm filming from my desk, it's not going to just be a plain white wall. So we're going to add something back there and we're going to make it out of fence pickets, some 2x6s, and some stain. So keep watching, we'll go out to the garage and we'll get started. Okay, so we have our fence pickets here, and I also have some pine boards. You could use either or. If you could find some pine boards that are nice and flat, and they're not bowed and they're not warped, you know, you could use those. So these would be nice. You could bang them up, distress them quite a bit. They're going to cost a little bit more, probably twice as much per board than a fence picket. The fence picket is cedar and very easy to bend. So we could probably straighten these out if they're warped. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rip them. I'm going to rip them just because I want that type of look. I think it's going to work out better rather than having them all same width going across. That would still look just fine, I think, but let's rip them. First we're going to do a light sanding on just one side, and then we'll rip them. And then we'll start staining each one a different shade, and we'll start putting them together, different lengths, different widths, and we'll make our backboard for that. So I do have a belt sander. Could use that. You could use a sanding block if you really wanted to, or you could just try staining them without sanding them. I'm going to use 60 grit, just kind of knock it down. I don't care if they're smooth. I'd rather have the rough look. Try to roughen it up a little bit and get some of this stuff off. That looks pretty cool. I mean, just the grain in that and the pattern, that's going to look way nicer than if I was to do a pine board. Okay, cleaning up the boards, that's done. I was sanding them. I figured it was going to take way too long, so I just ran them through the planer. And the planer, you know, made quick work of it, front and back actually. So they're really smooth. You don't have to run them through a planer. A sander will work. Technically, you don't even have to sand them if you don't want to. My next thing is I don't want a big gap between some of them. So I'm going to straighten some of these out by ripping them down. And then I will rip, you know, to different widths. After I do that, I'll cut them to different lengths and make my pattern. And then I'll start staining them. And it will go from there. Okay, so you can see I have my track saw out. If you don't know what a track saw is, check them out. They're really nice. It will make a nice straight cut. You could actually have a track saw and never own a table saw. Let's just put it that way. I'm gonna, you know, just straighten up the edges here so that way when I rip them on the table saw, you know, to whatever width I want, it has a nice straight edge to ride against. This is something that you do not have to do for this project. You could just start putting the boards together if you wanted to and have that gap in between. Some people might prefer that. And some of these boards, you know, they have a nice rough look on the edge and they might prefer that type of look to it. For me, I'm going to clean these up and then I'll start ripping them. Okay, as you can see, I have my pattern all laid out in the order that we want. I had to have my designer come out and help me with that. So I'll start cutting them to length. So I have them all marked. Whatever the pattern was down here, we'll mimic up here. And then we'll, you know, stain them all and then we put our shelves in. So the next step is just to start cutting these to whatever length you want. I got all mine marked, so I'm gonna start cutting these. Okay, so all my boards are cut to length. I want it a little bit darker, I think, so I'm going to do a quick stain on them. And I did some samples. I took a light colored board and a dark colored board and I numbered them. And I have 7 different stains. The only one we're not going to use is number 7 here, this last one. It's a little bit too dark. So I'm gonna start staining these up, and then we'll let it dry and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so while the boards are over there drying, I'm gonna cut some strips. These strips are gonna be probably about 3 inches in width with a 45-degree bevel. And I'm gonna make a French cleat system. So basically 2 boards will get attached to the wall, one up higher, one lower. And then on the back of these guys, and they'll just go on, slide down, hold it in place. So we're gonna get these cut, and then we'll cut them to length after we get the bevels on them. Okay, so you just see me cut those, and if you notice, I have 2 bigger ones and 2 smaller ones, which is perfectly fine. They don't have to be perfect. Basically, I'm gonna take the 2 bigger ones and attach them to the back of the board so I have more gluing surface, and then these smaller ones will get attached to the wall, top and bottom, and I'll just slide the whole unit right on. So I keep changing my mind as I work on this. So I was gonna glue one at a time, but that's gonna take forever. You can't really get a clamp in there, so if you clamp one at a time, it'd be great. But what I'm gonna do is I found some brad nails that are short enough that they're not gonna shoot all the way through. So I'm gonna use my brad nails. Otherwise, you could do weights or something and just put the board on, put some weights on it, and just put pressure on and hold it down. But I'm just gonna shoot it with a brad nail gun. So I'm just gonna get one in. And I could technically try to kind of squeeze them together. I think we're still going to put some weights on that. Something heavy, kind of push down on it. And so we'll get the glue going on this one. We'll get this piece on, and that will probably be it for the night until this guy dries up. Actually got glue coming through, well, just in one spot so far, but it's probably a good thing I looked. Yeah, we're gonna have to flip it. Okay, we got it flipped over. There was only a few spots with the glue, but I guarantee I would have had more spots with the glue bleeding through if I didn't flip it over. So if you're not gonna use brad nails like I did, you're just going to glue them on, put weights on. You're going to want to make sure you're very easy with the glue and don't glue the whole strip. Just glue on the back of these boards just in the center so the glue doesn't spread out too far. The shelves alone will add strength to the whole piece because the shelf will go here and it will get screwed in from the back, and I can screw in from each board so that the shelves will help hold the whole thing together as well. So that's it. We're gonna let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll be able to pick this up, hopefully, and get it out of the way. And then I'll start cutting the shelves, put them where I want them, and then stain them. They're all gonna be one colored stain, and I just don't know where I'm gonna put those. So keep watching. Okay, so it's time to make our shelves. The shelves can be pretty much anything you want. You could put shelf brackets on the piece, and then just lay some boards up on top. I'm gonna use 2x6 and drill in from the back so I don't have any brackets. If that doesn't work, then I can always add brackets down the road if I need to. I don't plan on putting a lot of weight on these. So I'm just gonna cut these down and take it inside and just kind of hold them up and see what size I want. I don't know if I'm gonna make them all the same length. I might make one shorter, one longer, I'm not sure. So let's get these cut down, and then I'll just kind of eyeball it. And then after that, we'll distress them a little bit, maybe round over the edges, and then put a coat of stain on them. Okay, so I have my boards cut to length. I took it in, had some help. My designer told me what to do, and we decided to go one long, short, short down here. And these boards here, you could just cut them, put them on, whatever you want to do. If you're going to use 2x6, you definitely want a nice flat edge on one side, so that way it goes up against, you know, the boards, and then you screw into them. If it's not really flat, you know, it might twist a little bit, so you definitely want to try to flatten one side. Either just rip it with a saw or a joiner, whatever you have. Just make sure one side is flat. The face of it, I'm going to kind of knock it down a little bit, distress it a little bit, and on the sides here. So I'm going to do everything except for this back piece. I'm not going to do anything to the top and the bottom, just the face going around and the edges. And for that, I'm going to use a belt sander. You could just whack it with, I don't know, just bang on it with a hammer or something, chip it out, and then lightly sand down the rough spots if you want to. Or you could just leave it nice and like a fresh cut piece of wood if you want to. So that's basically what I did. I just roughed it up a little bit. You could do a round over. You could do it nice and smooth if you want to. I just want to add a little character to them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sand it down lightly, get a lot of those fibers off, and just kind of smooth it down a little bit more. So one of these blocks will work real good for this. Okay, so I just got these pre-stained. As you saw, I was wearing a mask because the pre-stain is just nasty stuff. So I'm airing out the garage a little bit, and we'll start working on the stain here in just a few minutes. Okay, so the shelves are drying. So in the meantime, I'll take the board inside and mount my strips on the wall, get that hung, and then once these are dry, then I can get these mounted, and then we'll hang the whole thing back up and we'll be done. So the way I mounted this worked out really well. I found, you know, closest to the center, I found a stud here, ran one screw in, made sure it was nice and tight, but enough to where I can still move the board, so I can still tilt it. Hung this guy up there, and then just took the level up on the side, made sure it was nice and vertical, and then I just, you know, moved it left and right, kind of twisted it until I got it where I wanted it, lifted it off, and then I ran the other two screws through. That's all you got to do. So this hanger works really good. So I'll get the shelves mounted, and then we'll put it back up. So let's get this thing up on the wall here. I think I got enough screws in. Okay, up we go. So here we go. Let me step back and take a look. Okay, so it's been about a week now, and the board's shrunk a little bit, which is fine. I'm perfectly happy with the way it turned out. I kind of like seeing the small gap there. So if you don't want any gap at all, make sure the boards are nice and dry. Probably gonna have to leave them inside for a couple weeks, probably, you know, for them to dry out. I ran some LED lights around the back, you know, to shine outwards. I put some fairy lights on the shelves. And helped me with the design of the whole thing. It was her idea. She's the one that sent me the photo. I'm like, wow, that's easy to make and it's cheap. Yeah, let's build that. So it turned out really good. She bought a couple of things to help me decorate it. So, special thanks to her for, helping with this project, at least in the design part of it. She had a lot of good ideas, and one of them was the duct tape on the back between each picket. So they're starting to shrink and the gap's getting bigger. And if that duct tape wasn't there, my LED lights I put around the outside would actually shine through the pickets and it would look kind of dumb. So that was a good idea. So you don't have to do the LED lights going around the back of it. But if you do, there's kits on Amazon that you can get, and you could just string them, around the back, and they could just rest on that French cleat if you want to, and just kind of droop down, and the light will shine out. Fairy lights on the shelves, that's something you could do, that's optional. So this video was not really a how-to type of video. It was more to give you an idea on what you could do. So, if you're going to build something like this, make it your own. Hopefully you got some ideas out of it, like the French cleat. I thought that was a really good idea. The duct tape on the back between each board to fill up the gaps so you can't see through them. That's a really good idea. So if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. So I'll take you in for a closer look so you can see what it looks like. But thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it.